Thank you very much, Jax. Thank you very much for inviting me. And thanks to all the organizers to bring us again to Soria, this nice place. Our National Congress was here in 2018, so we have been already with the Spanish Nutrition Society here in Soria. And as I see here, so what brings us here is the way to Paris. So it's, I want to remind this is a way, the curse of the way to Paris next year at the end of August. Hopefully we meet all there to go on with exchanging our knowledge and pushing science forward. So we know that we are what we eat and drink. We have been talking about now a lot of that and what causes inflammation and not. And we are also how we move and how much we move. So, and this is already present in the Mediterranean diet. If we have a look at the Mediterranean diet, the last one published in the year 2010, here at the bottom, it said regular physical activity. So this is not diet, but it's really part of the Mediterranean diet. And also the people who have launched this pyramid wrote here that it's not only about diet, but it's a lifestyle. So if we talk about Mediterranean diet, in fact, we are talking about lifestyle. So I want to go a bit more in depth into that. Everyone knows currently what is written there, that being active has a positive effect on health, prevention of diseases, and an effect on all our organs and systems. These are the current recommendations for physical activity at all ages from WHO. These are the last ones, 2020, evidence-based. I will not go into depth into this because it would take much of the minutes I have to talk, but I can tell you they are really evidence-based. And everyone agrees also that there is an effect of exercise and in general of lifestyle on biological or chronological age and on the hallmarks of aging. So everyone, I think what we are talking about here is that we want to avoid a dependent life. We want to die more or less as healthy as possible. And that diet, but also exercise has an influence on the hallmarks of aging who have been very well described by our colleague, Professor López Odín from the University of Oviedo, who just retired. And that being active, having a healthy diet, and avoiding toxics, you have a more healthy phenotype. But does it make sense to put the title of my conference, Exercise in the Mediterranean Diet? So I want to show you some of the studies who have tried to combine if people follow the Mediterranean diet and if they are active, if this has a positive effect. This is one study done in professors and university students. I have to say that the professors were less active than the students. But if you look at the results, it says that for the total sample, both professors and students, physical activity was associated with a higher Mediterranean score. So health behaviors, including Mediterranean diet scores and physical activity, were suboptimal students and professors, but the results suggest that a Mediterranean diet is positively associated with both physical and mental health outcomes. So it seems that in this case, if you are active, you are more there is a higher probability to have a Mediterranean or to follow the Mediterranean diet. To the same conclusions came the authors of this study. The other one was at the campus of Melilla from the University of Granada. This is from the campus of the University of Malaga. Here it's only university students, but they come to the same conclusion. If you are engage in more than 300 minutes of physical activity per week, you are more likely to adhere to the Mediterranean diet and even to have a better psychological well-being and to affect and to cope better to stress. So again, there seems that if you are following and you are active, you are following their physical activity guidelines, also you have higher probability to follow the Mediterranean diet. This other study also in university students, here the results were not so optimal. Here, there was no relationship with Mediterranean diet and stress, But there was a relationship with the consumption of ultra-processed food and worse health. But if you look at the table, it's very difficult to look at the table from this place, from here where I'm standing. But here, I think it's here, somewhere, you can see that really in this sample, adherence to Mediterranean diet is really low. So there is no wonder that the results were not quite optimal, because in fact the adherence to Mediterranean diet was low. These were university students, professors. What about children, adolescents? These are data from the PASOS study. This is a representative sample for children and adolescents from Spain. We are publishing the data. And here again, you can observe that the optimal adherence to the Mediterranean diet was higher in children and adolescents, meeting daily recommendations about moderate and vigorous physical activity, but also those meeting daily recommendations about screen time and sleep. You know that in children and adolescents, the recommendation is less than 2 hours per day of screen time. So again, there was a relationship between both aspects. We already had observed this in children and adolescents in former studies. This is data from 2013, the ANIBE study. Here also we identified a Mediterranean dietary pattern among this representative sample of Spanish children and adolescents. And if you look at the table, those really following the Mediterranean diet, they have a much more healthier lifestyle pattern. And if you look here at the table, those following the Mediterranean diet and the healthier pattern, they are prone to be more active, spend less hours watching screens, etc. So again, there is a relationship between the dietary pattern and the lifestyle. But I have to say the bad news is that our children and adolescents are getting away. There is a shift. They are getting away from Mediterranean pattern. So if you look at the conclusions of this other study from our PASOS study, the conclusions is that the most prevalent pattern was low levels of physical activity, bad adherence to Mediterranean diet, high screen time, and also a high sleeping time. So in this study, this cluster study analysis we did, you can observe that these are the two most prevalent clusters in the PASOS sample we analyzed, and always adherence to the Mediterranean diet is low, and also physical activity is low. 1 and 5 were the most prevalent clusters. So the bad news is that even there is a positive effect and an association, children and adolescents in Spain, in other Mediterranean countries, are shifting away from this healthy pattern and are also getting more and more inactive. This is another publication from the PASOS study. And here we analyze the effect of the parents. So if parents follow a healthy diet and are active, there is a higher probability of children following the Mediterranean diet and also being more active. So again, the role model of the parents is very important, and this is proven in this publication. And this is one of the reasons why when we do, for example, we propose multi-component intervention at schools, we think that it must be a school family-orientated multi-component program, that you have to include also the parents. This is a systematic review about that. I will also not go into depth into this, but the systematic review is really interesting in this sense. What about elderly? So, as I thought, there will be a lot of studies being shown here about Mediterranean diets. This is a study from the United States, not about Mediterranean diet, but about following a healthy dietary pattern and being physically active. And here you can observe that if those elderly who really follow a healthy diet and are active are those with the lowest risk of mortality. You can observe this in the curve and also here in the table at the bottom here. You can see that those who are active and have the healthy dietary pattern have at least half of the less mortality risk than those who are not active or following not a healthy diet. So independent of the age, we are analyzing our data, university people, professors, children, adolescents, elderly. It comes out that the combination of a healthy dietary pattern and being active has a positive association. These are data only for physical activity and fitness. This is an ongoing longitudinal study we have in Spain, the EXENET study. And here we had also a look of those who are fitter. So if you are active and you really force your physiological response to exercise, you are getting fit. And those in this 8-year follow-up, those elderly were fitter. They also had a lower mortality risk independently of their body composition. So if they were fit but a bit overweight, they had a lower mortality risk than if they had a low fitness. So this is again one proven that being active and being fit is very important for health and for a lower mortality risk. So we think that the proposal is combination of Mediterranean diet, being active, has a positive effect on all, even on the cognitive performance and the brain. But also on our muscles, as I was saying, it's not only to be active, it's to be fit, to really force the physiological systems, for example, muscle building. And this is a very nice proposal from Italy, who have been analyzing elderly and Mediterranean diet. And you can observe here, it's a cross-sectional study, but you can observe that in all age groups, more than 57, 70, 75, 80, in all age groups, those who had a higher adherence to the Mediterranean diet, this is the orange bar, have a lower prevalence of sarcopenia. So it is also, again, the combination of activity, physical and Mediterranean diet, the combination of optimal nutrient intake and forcing the physiological system also to have lower prevalence of sarcopenia. We had already also the PhD thesis. This is a study we did within the PREDIMED study. And here we observed that those people aged over 55 who were fitter, here we analyzed them by fitness, those who had a higher fitness had also a lower prevalence of nutrient intake deficiency. This is minerals and vitamins. I'm not going into detail, women and men, but you can observe that there is a trend that having a higher fitness, there is a lower probability of having low vitamin and mineral intake. So, coming to an end, but I would like to say that there are ongoing studies trying to see the effect of exercise also on the gut microbiota. And there are some studies that the first results are showing that it seems that from being inactive to getting active, there is a change in gut microbiota to a more healthier microbiota, maybe also related probably to inflammation. There's also a relationship with the brain, as I was telling you. You know that now everyone knows currently that muscle is known as a functional organ, and the exerkines have an interaction with all our organs, including the brain. So there's also a positive effect of exercising with the brain. And before finishing, I want to say something about sitting. Now we are sitting here. So it's not only being active and doing exercise, it's also about less sitting. In children, it's clear, the message is less than 2 hours per day of screen time. What about adults? So this is one of the studies that are trying to see the combination of being active and sitting. And if you can observe, here are people who do not exercise, and here it's 1 to 50 minutes per week, 150 to 300. And here's hours, this is minutes of activity per week, and this is hours per day sitting. And you can observe that if you sit more than 8 hours per day, your mortality risk also is can be minimized if you do more than 420 minutes per week of exercise. So if one of you really sits every day more than 8 hours, you should do at least 420 minutes of exercise per week. Because if you sit more than 8 hours and do until 419 minutes per week, you can see that if you sit more, your mortality risk already increases. So it's the combination. It's not only being active, but it's being active and less sitting. I think this is very important, and we should include this in our new index. What about the data? The bad news also, I said already, we are shifting away from Mediterranean diet, but we are also quite inactive. At least half of European adults never do exercise. And if you can observe here, half of European adults sit between 1.5 and 6.5 hours per day, but 18% of European adults sit between 7.5 and more than 8.5 hours per day. So probably these are not those doing exercise. But as I told you, if you sit more than 8 hours, you have to do 420 minutes per week of exercise at least. So we can see that European adults probably are not following the guidelines. So coming to the end, this is another proposal of the Mediterranean diet pyramid, but again, here is exercise. So it seems that including exercise and physical activity into the Mediterranean pyramid makes sense because there is a synergistic effect of following Mediterranean diet and being active. Because those who are active have a higher probability of following the Mediterranean diet. So what should we do? We should do more exercise. We should reduce sedentarism. We should adhere to Mediterranean diet. We probably reduce ultra-processed food. We should teach children from the beginning to be healthy, to eat healthy, to do exercise, to get healthy dietary patterns, to maybe to include nutrition, exercise, precision nutrition. I'm not sure if Alfredo is here. To adapt to new patterns, and probably also to try to see if artificial intelligence can give some input, some advice on what is happening, why people are not following the guidelines. And I take the opportunity to say that this would be one of the topics that the Spanish Nutrition Society is going to introduce in next year at the UN's Congress in Paris about artificial intelligence, our session. So it is also a reminder to the way to Paris. So this is my research group, the I'm Fine research group. This is Sergio Calonge. He's sitting there, and he's already a professor here from the Universidad of Valladolid. And with this, I finish, and thank you all for your attention.